He noticed the absence the way a soldier hears a far-off misfire, an off-note in a score he's played all his life. At 4:12, between painkillers and papers, the king's right hand reached for a weight that wasn't there. The pinky felt lighter, colder. On the blotter, letters, a fountain pen, a bookmark pressed with heather. On his finger, nothing. For a man who catalogues time in objects, ink, vellum, vellum again, the missing ring wasn't jewelry. It was lineage. Continuity. Command. According to palace staff speaking under the customary veil of anonymity, the alarm spread without sirens. Doors were locked, cameras pulled, access lists frozen. The private study was stripped and reassembled like a crash investigation. A senior equerry compiled a minute-by-minute log of the ring's last known public sighting, then the last private glimpse, then the last memory at all. Servants were questioned, gently at first, then with the pressed velvet of court discipline. The footage showed hands, gestures, handshakes. Then nothing. A flicker of cuff, a shadow, a sleeve. Gone. To the public, the signet is one more gold glint in a river of regalia. To him, say those who've watched him remove it only for ointment and sleep, it is a compact in metal, Welsh gold, austere and stubborn, worked around a crest that has cut his life into decades. It survived postings, briefings, funerals, the earthquake of accession. When the harpists fell silent in Westminster Abbey and the choir's last note dissolved, the ring remained, a private anchor under a tidal crown. Its disappearance days after the coronation wasn't a theft in the criminal sense, it was a message in a haunted house. And then the whispers formed a single word, Camilla. Not accusation, whisper with a capital W. A question that didn't so much rise as settle on the drapes. Why didn't she ask? Why didn't she comfort? Why did she glide through engagements, as if a small sun hadn't fallen out of the firmament? One aide calls it the temperature drop. Another, the glass wall. The Queen, who had weathered a half-century's storm of opinion with equestrian calm, reportedly offered no public concern in the corridors. No, have they checked the valet box? No, ring the conservator. No, we'll find it, darling. A stillness that could be read as poise, or as distance. Around the same time, a different tremor passed largely unnoticed by anyone outside the small priesthood of court watchers. The official web pages shed a word. Where it once read, Queen Consort, it now read simply Queen. The late sovereign's preference had been clear in life, the styling honored history, and soothed nerves still raw from an earlier century. Now, with a keystroke, the qualifier was gone. Minor. Maybe. Inside the palace, it landed with a thud. The king, say sources, was not asked first. Then came the interview. No embargo on the grid, no heads up from comms. A glossy sit-down, packaged as intimacy, and modern candor, in which the Queen opined on slimming the family slate, trimming ceremonial fat, questioning the usefulness of some of the dustier engagements. She spoke, again, according to senior courtiers blindsided by the broadcast, of conversations with her husband, shaping them into a manifesto for an updated crown. Lines that might scan as common sense in a newspaper, looked like detonators on a palace transcript. Unapproved. Unvetted. Unshared. The following morning, the king's temper, famously cold rather than hot, was, as one official puts it, glacier. He summoned no counsel. He asked for no tea. When she entered, he did not raise his voice. He set the silence on the table between them and spoke in soft cuts. You acted without me, he said, says the aide who claims to have been within earshot. You quoted private thoughts. You moved a line my mother drew. And the ring. His thumb curled, uselessly. Who touched what was mine? Accounts diverge here, as they always do when a marriage evaporates into myth. One version, circulating in low voices since midsummer, has her producing the signet from her bag and laying it on the blotter with the unblinking calm of a chess player revealing mate. Another has her denying any knowledge, then later sending it back via a lady-in-waiting with a note about better safekeeping. A third offers only a sentence, "What is the king's is the queen's," alleged to have been delivered in a tone so gentle it drew blood. No version is confirmed. Kensington and Buckingham both declined to comment on private matters. Yet what followed does not need confirmation, it needs only eyes. She withdrew. Not a formal sabbatical, no health bulletin, no letter to the nation, just a vanishing of footfalls in galleries that had grown used to her stride. A museum gala quietly dropped from the court circular. A charity lunch attended by a vice-patron instead. The calendar fought to look normal, the corridors said otherwise. He, meanwhile, grew private in a way that was new even for him. Documents retreated back into his own hands. Drafts were revised at finer and finer levels. He waved away the soft diplomacy she had excelled at, the coaxing, the soothing, the jokes that blunt the teeth of a hostile interview. He wore the crown more as helm than halo. Not harder. Colder. And the ring. Not on his little finger. Not in photographs, not at investitures, not at the garden party where the sun angled just so and would have made it flare. People who've watched him for 50 years know how he fidgets with it when the anxiety hums. They saw only stillness. The absence kept speaking. To some, it said, trespass. To others, decision. Those who favor Camilla describe a woman finally occupying the space she earned by endurance. She is done auditioning, says a friend from the horse world. She stood inside fire for decades. If she asserts a position now, she's not usurping, she's surviving. Those who do not favor her see a power learned in shadows turned outward at last. They remember the website edit, the unauthorized interview, the practice call when the ring went missing. A portrait forms, unfair, maybe, yet potent, of someone who believes the crown is a lake, not a mirror. You step in, the lake belongs to you. Inside the household, the political calculus sharpened. A monarchy is a company with filial shareholders and only one CEO. Parallel power centers are where empires go to die. Senior advisors, schooled by Diana and the 90s, pressed for consolidation. Tighten comms. Synchronize diaries. Clarify titles. In the king's own schedule, small tells gave the game away. Engagements she would once have fronted now bore his initials, briefing binders returning to his desk with stickies in his handwriting, not hers. The partnership reframed itself at speed. Outdoors, the optics didn't care about internal memos. Images write history, absences underline it. Veterans who've stood under rain at cenotaphs began asking the question no institution wants to hear: who is in charge? Not constitutionally, in the brittle legal sense, everyone knows the answer, but symbolically. Who holds the gravitas, when the crown must walk into a room broken by grief or shame? The late Queen answered that by showing up. The current one seemed to be, not showing up. In that vacuum, other rumors migrated in. About a lodge in Windsor where old loyalties rot and mold creeps up stairwells. About a son across the ocean who sells truth by the ounce. About a sister of iron preparing to count down into private life. The monarchy can weather storms. It cannot weather the feeling that the weather has moved indoors. So where does the story, half rumor, half record, leave the ring? In a velvet box in a locked drawer. In a safe in the jewel house. On a blotter at 412, still missing. Pick one and you'll reveal more about your trust in people than about the metal itself. What matters is what the metal means. Continuity. Covenant. Custody. The king seems to have decided that some symbols are too flammable to parade while questions smolder. He may return it to his hand when the oxygen thins. Or he may not. He knows that even a small shine, at the wrong time, can set a narrative ablaze. As for the marriage, palace optimists talk about recalibration. That word has carried many royal unions through winter, a polite euphemism for borders drawn on parchment and hearts. No one credible speaks of collapse. But the fairy tale, such as it ever was, feels retired. In its place, a treaty. If there was a decision against Camilla, as some outlets frame it, it likely wasn't screamed in a corridor or scrawled in an edict. It would have been smaller, and in some ways sharper, access narrowed, titles defined, sign-offs centralized. A reassertion that the sovereign, not the spouse, not the website, not the magazine cover, is the final steward of ritual and relic. Not because love failed. Because system came first. A final note, necessary in an age that confuses whispers for verdicts. Much of the above is reconstruction, stitched from slivers, vantage points, and the theatre of inference that always hovers over palaces. What is incontestable is the mood shift, the ring's public absence, the queen's drift from certain engagements, the king's tightened hand on process. Between those facts runs a story like a wire under carpet, felt more than seen, dangerous if you trip. Royal watchers will keep peering at photographs, looking for that glint back where it belongs, and reading the return as either reconciliation or capitulation. Others will prefer the new austerity, fewer jewels, fewer smiles, more steel. Either way, the night the ring went missing, whether by accident, intention, or act of symbolic war, became the night Buckingham's balance of power tilted. Not a coup. Not even a crisis. A boundary, finally drawn. And somewhere in a drawer, Welsh gold waits for a verdict only two people can deliver. Slip back onto the finger and restore the story, or stay where it is, a lesson in what happens when symbols and souls collide.